Hello, I am Get Good Fox, and today we are going to be looking at the fall crops. I'm going to organize them from most profitable to least profitable, as well as tell you which ones are good for gifting and so forth. In the last episode, I did this exact same thing, but for the summer crops, so now it's fall's turn. At any rate, let's take a look at the chart I've created. So, in fall we have 14 crops to choose from. Technically we have 15 if you count the ancient fruit, but because that can grow in every season except winter, I don't really count it in this case. However, I will count the crops that grow both in the summer and the fall. Now, before we look at each crop individually, I want to point out a few things about the graph, and I want to bring your attention to the wheat, corn, and sunflower at the far end of the graph. The reason they have two bars is because they grow both in fall and summer, and the shorter bar represents the value of just planting in the fall, whereas the longer bar represents the value of planting both in the summer and the fall. The other thing I want to talk about are the values, the prices on the bars, and what it represents is if you were to harvest one tile of crop as many times as you can within the season, and then subtract the cost of buying the seeds, that's what the number means. So it already takes into consideration plants that have to have constant reseeding, and so you lose money to seeds, versus plants that you only have to plant once in the season. Anyways, let's get started. The sweet gemberry basically blows everything out of the water except ancient fruit. Ancient fruit is the king of crops, but within the fall season, the sweet gemberry is pretty much unstoppable. So does that mean you should just go out and plant a massive field of sweet gemberries? Well, probably not, because unless you already have a whole bunch of them on hand, you're not going to be able to do that because they are not the easiest to obtain. You see, unlike most crops, which you just go to Pierre's store and you buy as many as you can afford, the sweet gemberry grows from the rare seed, and those are sold on Fridays and Sundays by the traveling merchant in the northwest corner of the Cindersap Forest. And on top of that, for the most part, it's only available in spring and summer. In the fall and winter, she is not guaranteed to carry it in her inventory stock. On top of that, she has a limited amount available, so you can't even buy that many. So, having a large amount of sweet gemberries is not the easiest thing to do. But when you do grow one of these, the base value is 3,000 gold. In addition to that, you can trade one of these for a star drop. I will make a card in the top right corner of the video linking you to the guide on how to do that. Next up though is the cranberry, and this is the second most valuable crop, and it's very simple to grow, so no matter what stage of the game you're in, even in the very beginning of the game, this is certainly worth it to plant because you just go to Pierre, buy some seeds, and plant them. They are a continuously growing crop, so you don't have to go through the hassle of reseeding them, and it's worth knowing that there are actually 4 cooking recipes they're used in, so they have quite a variety of uses. Onwards, though, to the pumpkin, and this crop is also worth a decent bit. You wouldn't be making a mistake if you planted this for profit. It's still not quite as good as the cranberry, though, so personally I would allow cranberry to do the money-making. The thing about pumpkin, though, is that it is the favorite gift of Abigail, of Krobus, and of Willie. It's used in the Fall Crops bundle, it's used in the Quality Crops bundle, it's used in 3 different cooking recipes, and there will be a quest for Carolyn who will want 1 pumpkin, so it has quite a bit of uses. Next up is the grape, which is interesting because it is both a fall crop and a summer forage. In fact, it is for the summer foraging bundle. Anyways, you should know, however, that it grows on this rack, and the rack becomes a physical obstruction once you plant it. So if you plant it extra thick, you won't be able to path through it and harvest the ones in the middle. That said, the main value of grape would be to give to Vincent because they are one of his favorite gifts. The next crop on the list is the artichoke, and this is a somewhat unremarkable crop. It's not the favorite gift of anybody. It's not used in any bundles. It's just used in 2 cooking recipes, so if you're not interested in that, you could definitely skip on the artichoke. Next up, though, is the beet, and this one actually is useful. The first thing you want to know, though, is that you have to buy the seeds from Sandy, who lives in the desert, and the only way to get to the desert is to ride the bus, and the only way to ride the bus is to repair the vault bundle, and that's going to set you back 40,000 gold. As for beet's uses, first off, they are one of Evelyn's favorite gifts. You can mill them, which would transform them into sugar. I wouldn't do that, but it's an option. And lastly, in order to complete the casino quest chain, you will need 10 beets, which you will then put in Mayor Lewis's refrigerator. The next crop, though, is the eggplant, another continuous growing crop, and every time you pick one, there is a possibility that more than one will be dropped, but most of the time you'll just get one. Otherwise, it is a fairly unremarkable crop, but it is used in the fall crops bundle. Next up, though, is the Amaranth, and this is another fairly unremarkable crop. However, I do recommend planting one tile of it because it is the objective of a quest that Marnie will give you. Following that, though, is the yam, and this crop is worth planting a handful of because they are one of Linus's favorite gifts, and they are also used in the fall crops bundle. Now we're at the Bok Choy. This is actually a crop I don't recommend planting except for completionist value because it doesn't really have many uses and it's not worth very much. And finally, we are at the Ferry Rose. The reason I'm going over all these different crops is because you would probably skip over this if you were just going by the chart, but Ferry Rose is actually really powerful. First off, it is the favorite gift of Evelyn. It's also the favorite gift of Jess. Oh, but if it's money you seek, don't worry, I've got you covered. You see, the Ferry Rose has the ability to increase the value of honey from its basic value of 100 gold to 680. So you get 680 gold every 4 days per bee box, and if you have the artisan profession ability, that increases to 952. So basically, 1,000 gold per bee box every 4 days. Next up, though, is wheat. And let me tell you, wheat sells for dirt. When you harvest wheat, you want to do something else with it besides sell it. And here are the things you can do with it. First off, you can put it in the mill to create flour. I wouldn't do it, but hey, it's an option. The main thing you want to do with it, though, is put it in a keg because that produces beer, and beer is worth 200 gold at its base value, which is not too bad. Next up, though, is corn, and we're definitely in the losers list right now. The only reason I would plant corn is for the fall crops bundle and the quality crops bundle. Technically, you can increase the value of corn by planting it both in summer and in fall, but honestly, 400 gold at the end of 2 seasons is not good. And lastly, we have the curious sunflower, which actually loses you money due to the high cost of its seed versus the low value of the flower itself. It's also curious because it's a flower, but it doesn't affect honey. However, it isn't useless. Its first value is to complete the dye bundle, but you can also give them to Haley because they're one of her favorite gifts. You can also make oil out of them, but I wouldn't do that. And there you have it. Those are the crops of fall. To recap, of course, the king of all crops is the ancient fruit, but it's a bit of a technicality. Following that, though, you've got the sweet gem berry. Insane profit, but a little hard to set up. Don't forget you can trade 1 in per playthrough for a star drop. After that, though, you've got the cranberry. This is what I would recommend for most people to plant because it's accessible and it has decent profit. After that, you've got the pumpkin. You should definitely plant some of these. It is the favorite gift of 3 different characters, after all. And don't miss out on the Ferry Rose, which is the favorite gift of 2 characters, and it enhances honey to that 680 gold value, 950 if you have the artisan profession perk. But that's all for this episode. Like my video if it helped you, if it gave you some new ideas, and subscribe for future Stardew Valley content. And of course, don't forget that you don't have to be good to get.